All right, welcome to another episode of the Brilliant Wonders podcast. I'm Josi, your host, and today we are just going to discuss real life. It's Holy Week. It's Easter week, and this will actually come out on Easter Sunday, which is interesting. This week will always, obviously it marks a place in my heart due to Jesus dying on the cross for us. I remember way back when I was going to confirmation, I think it would have been at the time, but we went as a class. We went to the Passion of the Christ, the first time I ever saw that in movie theaters. And holy smokes, that was like so powerful and not something I was ready to see. I remember Father Gary sitting next to me and calling, like, he was worried about me throughout the entire movie, especially during the beatings and the things that were happening to Jesus at the time. And I just, until you see it, like, it's like hard to put yourself in those shoes. And obviously we never have, but anyway, since that time, I try to watch that movie every Easter, and no, it is a downer, but it's like something to really put myself into, like, put things into perspective for myself. So anyway, I this week has always been something that I really I don't know, I just kind of focus in on and get pretty intentional about some things, and just so grateful for this week and what it means, and all the things. With that in mind, I do want to talk about what happened a year ago during this time. So a year ago, I had flown from the UK. So when I left Asia, I went to London first for a little bit. And then from there, I went to Spain. And I flew into Malaga, and I was there for a few days. And before I had decided, because I had learned along the way, you guys, there was so much to learn about traveling for long term like that. I had learned along the way that I needed to stay in a place for just a little bit of time to decide whether I wanted to be there for a whole month. And I was traveling on a budget, so it made a difference for me on where I stayed for a month, because I would get a discount by staying in Airbnbs for longer than a few days. You get I think there was a weekly discount and then sometimes a monthly discount. So I was wanting to find a place that I wanted to spend a month in. And I had done this wrong in Bali, where I stayed a month in a town that I wasn't really super excited about being at. So this time I was going to do it different. So in between the month stay at one Airbnb and the time that I was there was like, I don't know, 5 days off in between there, that I decided to go to another town for a bit. But I got to start Holy Week in Malaga, and I saw my first parade, and it was insane. Like, this parade would go through, the streets were lined, they shut down the streets for certain parts of Malaga, but these parades went where streets weren't shut down either. It was just there was one main one, I would say, and then a lot of other churches, or however it worked, would be doing their own little parades in different parts of the city. So I was right downtown, and I went for a walk that morning, and they had been putting up chairs and blocking off these streets, and you could tell where the floats were going to be going. And so I did my walk, and on my way back from my walk, the parade started. It started like 10 a.m. and the streets were lined with people, but nothing was happening yet. So I just kind of stood there, because I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I wasn't sure of the whole deal. And sure enough, I think it was must have been like on a Wednesday or something. It was maybe, no, Palm Sunday. It must have been Sunday. I bet it was Palm Sunday. Anyway, no, that wouldn't have been it. I don't know what it was. I can't remember because it was, I'm trying to remember what the first float was. So each day was different, right, on what they were celebrating that day. And the floats were different. But this one was celebrating children. I remember that. And that all of these kids were walking down the streets and they had their candles lit. And they were just watching the wax like drop onto the cobblestone streets, right? Like we're talking maybe like second to fifth graders, somewhere around there. And they're just, yeah, getting kids to walk down the streets. And this is a slow parade. This is not a fast parade. We're talking lifting. There's probably like 15 to 20 guys on each side of this float, and they carried it on their shoulder, all in sync with each other. So it was like the float would kind of really float, like it was how it moved, being carried on their shoulders, and they'd step this all in unison with each other, walking down the street. And of course, since you're carrying this really big, heavy float, it was not very far before they would stop again. So these parades moved quite slow. And when I'm looking at these little kids that the teachers are trying to like keep them entertained when they're stopped for a bit, just it took a lot of effort. These parades took so much effort, and they went on throughout the night. They were all the time. And I just remember I went from Malaga for those few days, and then I went to Ronda, Spain, and spent the rest of Easter until Easter Sunday. Then I came back to Malaga. And when I was in Ronda, it was the same thing. I was in a hotel, and pretty soon, like at midnight or something, I'd start hearing horns and drums, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is it going on right now? Like, you guys, it never stopped. Like, they celebrated Holy Week hard. So hard, and people would come from all over the place to come watch these parades and celebrate together. It was just a really beautiful experience. So Easter is going to always have a different, that's going to be one memory that I'll never forget, is being able to experience Easter in Spain. It was just a whole nother level. And then through that time, so on Sunday, I had reached out earlier that week to find a church to go to, one that I felt like I might know the language and things like that. So I found an international church, and sure enough, you guys, like, this is just what happens when I travel. And I've told this to other people, and they're like, really? Like that? I expected it not to be so like inviting, but yeah, I was traveling and I found a church. I messaged them, and they said, hey, like, I don't think you won't be back for Easter, mass, or church, but we are having dinner, Easter dinner, and it sounds like you might not have anybody to have Easter dinner with, so would you like to come to our house and we'll host you? So sure enough, right away in Spain, I had found a church, found somebody who was super inviting. Her name was Heather, and she was the pastor's wife, and brought me in, and we had this beautiful Easter dinner. It was so, so lovely. And I actually just messaged her this week, and I was like, hey, Heather, guess what? I've known you for a year. At least it's been about a year. And she said, yes, it has. So happy to have met you. It's just been, it was really, really cool. So this week is just making me reflect back on what was going on a year ago for me, and how much exploring and things. I was learning so many new things, and just what all was going on. And I was putting on so many miles. I was walking miles. And it made me think back a little bit to remember like what was going on, what things were really working for me and working for my body to feel good, what was working for me mentally, emotionally, like what I was building my website at this point, you guys. Like, a lot of people thought that I was just traveling around doing nothing probably. And granted, it did seem like that, but just to find a place to eat was sometimes harder than you would think. Walking to it, getting to it, deciding whether the food was going to be decent, or like whatever, finding things to do, finding churches, thankfully for phones and GPS. Like, I can't imagine traveling without GPS now. But anyway, I was thinking back on what all was working for me and what wasn't working for me at the time. And I was building a website at the time, and I was moving a lot, walking a lot, using creativity as much as I could. And I just, looking back, I cannot believe how much has changed and what I've learned since then. But it's easy to go back to some old ways. And this was a great reflection of like, hey, what was working, what wasn't, and what has creeped back into my life that maybe I don't want there, and what maybe was I doing then that I'm no longer doing. And so it's been a really neat and kind of like maybe I didn't realize quite where my life would be now when I was going through those travels to see what was going to be coming up for me. Because you guys, there was so much uncertainty. I just didn't know. I was just trying to follow God and let Him take me where I needed to go and what I needed to see in order to bring things back home and continue on my journey at home. So one thing that I did change is I ate differently when I was abroad. So a lot of people will tell you that gluten is a lot different over there. It very well might be, but gluten still didn't agree with me that well there. Okay, so traveling food-wise, what I was eating was very different. One thing was that they ate a lot of rice in Thailand, or like in Asia, right? There was a lot of rice, a lot of eggs. Not a ton, but some veggies, but not a ton of veggies. And it did seem like I got just a little bit of meat or something, like it wasn't heavy meals, I would say. So that was different. I had spent 2 months eating like that, or almost 3. Yeah, almost 3 months eating very differently. And then when I got to Spain, they did have a little bit more meat, and ham was a really big deal. And I remember eating the ham right away, and I ended up getting some little pimples on my arms, so I quit doing that as much. I didn't eat as much prosciutto and stuff like that, but it was everywhere and it looked delicious. So people that can do that, go for it, but it didn't really agree with my body. But I will say, like, I ate very different there in that I had my meals. I had 2 meals a day, and that was about it. I might snack on like an apple or something in the middle of the day, but I would wait and have my breakfast from 9 to 10 o'clock, and then I would eat again in the evening before it got really busy downtown, and then I would go home. Like, I wasn't, it was very different because I did eat out quite a bit, but I would, plan it 2 meals a day instead of 3, our typical 3. So I kind of went back to that. Now I don't eat as early, and I maybe have a small lunch because I've typically had, my breakfast at 10 or 11 over the last couple weeks, and then went back to eating supper earlier and try not to eat it as late, and just to see how that goes. But I moved after every meal because I would go out to eat, I would walk to my dinner or walk to my breakfast, and then I would walk home. So there's so much movement going on. And as I have become more like doing this podcast, right? I'm sitting down, I'm working in a different way. I have realized as a chiropractor, I did not sit down at all day long. Like, I moved a lot. And I've realized now how much different I feel when I'm moving. So I went on and got a walking pad. Those are the bee's knees now, right? Like, everybody's posting about walking on their walking pads. I can totally understand why you need a walking pad or something to create movement while you're working. I cannot imagine working 8 hours a day and maybe getting up for lunch and a pee break here and there. Like, you guys, that is not okay for our bodies, no matter who you are. It's just not enough. It's not enough. We've got to get some mobility going. And if I don't, I'm not okay. Like, my brain isn't working quite as good. I'm not as productive. I'm not as positive. There's a lot going on that movement creates that momentum in your body and that vitality in your body. So if you're having trouble getting some movement in, I don't know, get the walking pad or get up and dance around, whatever it is. It sure does help, and it's helped me as a reflection of like what was going on a year ago to what's going on now. The other thing that I would say from a year ago to now, and something that wasn't happening a year ago and is happening now. So I won't say that my trip in Spain I was always feeling like $1,000,000. It was lonely there at times. I did make some friends. That was great. But that was towards the end of my trip where I had met people along the way and then I had to say goodbye to them and I didn't know if I would ever see them again, right? And then I got to Spain as my last stopping point, or pretty much my last stopping point for a longer jaunt of time. And I really wanted to start my business then. So start my online business at that point, where I just wanted to help people. And I knew from that point that I was looking at helping people from a different lens, a different view, more of a different perspective. But I needed to like get the idea out. So it took a little bit for me to put all that together and my website and stuff. But I hadn't been helping people yet. All I had been doing was creating this space of like making it look pretty and vibrant, as in how I felt at the time. Like I just, when I was taking my pictures or building my website or like writing the content that's going on the website, I'm like, okay, like this is how I want people to understand, like they can feel this way too. A little bit empowered, confident, like those sorts of things. So then when I came back to the US then in end of May, I believe it was, I was all like still doing all the things that I was doing when I was traveling. It was very easy to keep that momentum going. The only thing that was very different was I was closing chapters when I came home. I hadn't closed all my chapters before I had left on my trip, and I was closing chapters. So when I was there in Spain, I was feeling creative. I came home and I closed some chapters, and my creativity kind of died down. So now looking at how things look, I'm very, very grateful that I had that time period in Spain to kind of like really set a vibe or a brand to what I stand for and what I want. But once I came home, then all the planning needed to happen, all of the strategies and how to get in front of people again, and opening up my chiropractic business again, closing, selling my house, getting closure on my practice in Bismarck. I was seeing people in Bismarck for a little bit. There was just a lot of like strategy that happens at home. Now here's the deal, and this is the brain piece of me. When you get into planning and that sort of thing, you're using a lot of beta. You're using a lot of beta brainwaves in your head. And when it comes to uncertainty and being a little bit unsure of what's coming ahead, like you try to plan through it. So I had kind of lost, and I hate to say it, but it's just the way it is. I had kind of lost over a period of time. This wasn't right away. I didn't start noticing it until maybe November of where I was really at. And then January was like, you need to make a change. But it was, I had gotten into the planning part so much that it was hard for me to get out of it and back into my creative space, and my connection and things like that. It was like, it was a bit of an old pattern that I must have needed to see again and feel again in order to break the pattern. Like, this is what I'm wanting to do. I'm breaking old habits, old patterns that my body wants to go into, right? And that's what I'm teaching now, is helping you break these old patterns, these old feelings, even if they come every 3 months or every year. Like, what is it that's going on? How can we break these things? And that's what happened. Like, I got into a state of planning and trying to make everything perfect, and doesn't serve me. It does not work for me. And I know some people are very much like that, but I actually find that the more I start planning and starting to try to like organize and make things like fit in this box, the more imbalanced I become. And as soon as I saw that coming, like, I was like, well, you're just going to push through this right now, because there are some things that need to get done that take some planning. So I was like, okay, so you push through for a little bit. And this is what I talk about, white knuckling it. I don't want to live white knuckling it, but every once in a while I have to white knuckle and use my willpower to get through an old way. But here's the deal, is at some point you need to be able to let go of it. And I never did until January. It was like time to let go, meaning I hired somebody to help me work through some of my stuff to figure some things out, because this business was very new to me. The back end, you guys see me all the time. This is not new. My podcasting and like talking to you guys and stuff, and this is not new, but helping get my message out there further, helping people see the value in what I'm doing. Like, that's just, I mean, I just show up myself when I when I come to talk on here. I don't I typically am not selling a whole lot, right? Or I'm not putting a program out there very often, these things. But this is what I do now, right? So I needed some help in messaging and learning how to actually make a living at what I want to do these days. And so anyway, the planning really was good for a bit, because I needed to do it, but I didn't know how to let go of it. So looking at March, it's April now, and April a year ago, I am back in that springtime flow. And it took some work to get rid of that, and it's been 2 weeks, and 2 weeks of really focusing in on my nervous system. I got the help I needed to kind of move through some business stuff, but then I needed to balance my brain again. And unfortunately, I did go out of balance when I was working through these issues. And I talked about that on a podcast before, on how I know that through my brain scans. But I have been working very diligently the last couple of weeks to balance my brain out and to get back into that flow and creative state. They're both important. There's not that you need to be more of a planner, or you need to be more creative, or you need to be more of an innovator or a leader or whatever. You yourself have a balance, and it's going to look different. The ratios, whatever, of all the things that you do is going to be different than mine, but we can both be balanced, but we're very different. And that's what I love about human beings, is how different we are. We are all so different gifts, different talents, different skills, different resources, different communities. Like, we're so different, and we find out what works for us. So I will tell you, the last couple of weeks, I focused on one thing. I think this is where people get so messed up in what they're trying to do to change their lifestyle. I find that I make things very simple. If it's not something that's going to balance my nervous system, I don't want to do it. If it's something that's going to help me balance my nervous system, I do it. That's because I chose my focal point to be my nervous system regulation. That was it. I did not focus on what workout should I do today, how should I eat today, how should I, I didn't have a whole lot of other things that I was thinking about. The only thing I thought about was my nervous system. So I focused on it. And as I focused on one thing, a lot of things shifted in my life. I teach this in the Inner Brilliance Design experience. I help people see what's the one thing you're going to focus on for the next few weeks, and what else, we'll see what else changes with it. Like, let's not get super fancy here and have like all this strict routine. What's one thing you can focus on? Every decision you make is based off of this piece. What else changes in your life because of that? What you focus on grows, right? Like, we've heard that time and time again. It doesn't change with your health. It doesn't change with your life either. Just looking at what is the one thing that you need to focus on. And for me, it's kind of, like I said, I had an imbalanced nervous system for a little bit, and we brought it back around. And you know what? The first time that I had to bring this thing back around, it took me months. It took me almost 6 months probably. And that was to get to, something that looked a little healthier on my scans, right? Or however you want to just, if you don't want to do scans, how I felt, right? It took me a while to get there. But once I got there, I was able to embody it and feel it. I know what it feels like to be balanced. I know what it feels like for me to be off balance. I can recognize the two different things. I might be in one for longer than I thought before I realized I was there. I might be in one for longer than I realized before I made the connection that I was in balance or off balance. But I do know the difference in the feelings. And I would highly recommend you doing the same and understanding the difference between the two. The hard part is that when we've been out of balance for so long, we don't know what balance feels like. And now that I can honestly say, now that I know what balance feels like, it's easier for me to come back to it because I know the territory. I realize what it feels like to be there. And I know what it feels like to not be there. So, yeah, I would say, Holy Week now, starting the podcast off with Holy Week and being now a year out from my experience in Spain and what was going on in my life at that time in the creative space and who I was meeting. And gosh, it was just a beautiful, beautiful month. And coming into that time now, feeling more balanced and feeling more in flow. I'm just very, very excited for what the next few months have in store for us. So, happy Easter, everyone. I'm really happy to have you on here, and it's been great chatting with you. If you have any topics that you want me to chat about, if you're wanting to know more about travel, if you're wanting to know more about health, if you're wanting to know about leadership or business or whatever, let's chat. Let's send me a quick message, and I'll see if I can do a podcast episode on it. I would love to share what you guys wish to hear from. So, thanks everyone, and we will see you next time.